What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So today we're talking about something that is a pretty hot topic right now, which is of course the Sony a7 III. Now, a lot of you guys may or may not know that I shoot with the Sony a7R II, and it has been my primary go-to do-it-all camera for the greater part of, I think, getting on to be two and a half years now. And really in that time period, there hasn't been any reason that I've considered switching or that I've wanted to switch. The camera has pretty much had all the features that I've wanted and needed for my type of shooting, which ranges actually a lot of things. So I'm kind of like a jack of all trades. I'll do photo, I'll do portrait, commercial stuff, also video commercial stuff, obviously YouTube, run and gun shooting. The kind of work that I do is all over the place, and this camera has been solid enough to be able to last me through pretty much every situation, which has been really great. I don't think there's any other camera that I would have chosen in that time period. The only other camera that I could think would maybe suit my needs would be something like the 1DX Mark II, which is obviously like a huge, bulky, heavy camera that costs like $6,000. The lenses are huge. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Canon lenses, but I really do feel spoiled with the fact that my main run and gun Sony setup is like less than like 3 pounds. Just being straight up with you guys, there's been absolutely no real reason or consideration for me to want to switch to something until they dropped the a7 III. Now, I'm sure most of you guys probably already know all the specs of the camera, so I'm not going to go too far into detail, but of course we have the new and updated 24 megapixel back illuminated sensor, which in short basically means it has the low light performance of something like the a7S series from Sony, which has pretty much been the king of low light cameras since that series was first announced. So this on its own is a huge deal, but to add into that, they added in the 10 frames per second shooting, which makes it basically just as fast as the A9, and as well, they added the 693 phase detection autofocus system, which again, puts it right on the same tier as the A9. They're essentially squeezing in some very pro features into what they're calling a basic entry-level full-frame mirrorless series camera. Now, along with that, they've also updated the body to have the same sort of style as the A7R III, which basically has the new and refined buttons and dials, the slightly redefined body, the updated battery, the touchscreen. There's just a ton that has changed in this camera that is really making it a serious game changer for the whole full frame mirrorless. But real quick, before we get into the video, I want to thank the people over at Squarespace for sponsoring and supporting this video. You guys already know the deal. Squarespace is an amazing all-in-one platform. If you guys are looking to build a website, an online store, a portfolio, Squarespace is one of the best platforms to do that nowadays. Amazing award-winning designer templates, 24/7 customer support. If you're designing a website at like 4 in the morning and you're like, oh, I need some help, they can actually help you out at that time, which is a convenience. I actually have a funny story about that. Maybe I'll tell you about that another time. But of course, with that being said, if you guys are looking to get going, you can head over to squarespace.com/RyanCow, 10% off your first purchase. I got your back. Okay, enough about all the specs. What does this actually mean to somebody like me? I'm an existing Sony shooter. I'm shooting on the a7R II, which by pretty much any standard is still a relatively current and pretty powerful camera. Is it really worth the upgrade? Is it really worth potentially selling my a7R II and switching to the a7 III? For me, yes. Now, here's the reason why. I initially bought the a7R II for photo. Now, over the last, give or take year or so, I've been doing significantly more video with, my YouTube channel growing. I've been getting more attention toward myself with freelance and clients. I haven't been shooting a lot of photo in a professional sense. So the whole reason I have this camera, which was that it was a 42 megapixel full frame sensor, a really strong autofocus system, I'm not even really taking advantage of that. There's better options out there for video than the a7R II. In fact, the a6500 is even a better camera for video at this point in time. So would it be worth it to switch to the a7 III for video? Absolutely. Now, that's not to say that I'm losing out on its photo abilities. I mean, it's still a 24 megapixel sensor. It's a faster autofocus system. It's a faster shooting camera, 10 frames per second versus I think like 5 or something like that the a7R II has. By pretty much every other standard within, the photo video aspect, and especially the usability, like the larger battery, the redefined body, it's a better camera. The interesting thing is that my a7R II sells used for roughly the same price as the a7 III brand new, which, if I haven't said that by now, it is a $2,000 camera. Like, what? For those of you who don't really fully understand what this means, This really shakes up the full frame market, whether or not it is mirrorless. I mean, Canon users, for example, somebody who might be interested in like the Canon 6D Mark II, are now really gonna have a tough time deciding between switching over to the Sony mirrorless game. I mean, there's some serious powerhouse features that Canon, Nikon, whoever simply cannot compete with at this price range. Now, of course, we're not necessarily finished up with the announcements that are likely to happen in 2018 for camera manufacturers. I mean, we still have NAB, we still have a couple of other shows, but the likelihood that Canon or Nikon or really anybody else is going to be releasing something that's actually going to be able to compete with the A7 III for the price range, I personally, I don't really see it happening. Let me give you guys my reasoning behind that. Every camera manufacturer has certain model lines and certain price tiers of all their cameras. Now, there's certain features that restrict those models to those price ranges. For example, Canon, they have the Rebel series cameras, the 70D, the 80D, the 7D Mark II, and then we step up into the full frames. We have the 6D Mark II, the 5D Mark IV, and then of course the top end dog, which is like the 1DX Mark II. Canon specifically has to be very careful with the features they implement into each of those cameras. Reason being, they have to think of the customers who might potentially be on the edge of the 6D Mark II, for example, or purchasing the 5D Mark IV. There are features, obviously, that the 5D Mark IV has. For example, we have things like 4K, a better autofocusing system that the 6D Mark II doesn't have. So the potential for them to maybe upsell and buy the next model up, there's a chance. But if Canon were to put 4K, which is a big selling point of the 5D Mark IV, into the 6D Mark II, that eliminates a huge portion of the market who would potentially be willing to spend that extra couple $1,000s to drop up into the 5D Mark IV system. So circling back around, what does this mean for the A7 III and, you know, potentially other camera manufacturers being able to compete with that camera? Well, like I said with Canon, how the 5D Mark IV is kind of the exclusive full frame that offers 4K in Canon's lineup, the likelihood that they'll be able to drop something, I don't know whether it would be like a 6D Mark III or potentially a new model that would be able to compete with the A7 III, which is again a 24 megapixel full frame sensor with seriously the autofocusing system of the A9, like that I can't explain to you guys how powerful this camera is for the money. I truly do not think anybody for at least the next year is going to be able to release a camera for $2,000 that is offering anywhere near these specs. So what does this mean for me? What does this mean for you guys? Well, personally, I really want one. I'm gonna wait till they announce the A7S III, which is hopefully going to be within the next month or two here, to see what that's going to be offering. But to be honest, I think the A7 III might be the perfect camera for me and my use case. For you guys, if you are looking to get into, you know, a powerful camera, you've been debating between maybe something like the A6500 or something like the A7R III. I don't know, maybe you're kind of in the middle there. You want to go full frame, but you can't really afford it. Well, now you have the $2,000 price point, which is very, very affordable for a full frame series camera, let alone one that has the same features as like the top level full frame Sony cameras. This is, I can't explain to you guys how crazy this is, that this is legitimately $2,000. Like, what? So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I think the A7 III is seriously going to be probably the camera of 2018. I can't honestly think of any other manufacturers releasing something that is going to be able to compete with this camera. It's going to be a game changer for sure, especially for us like the YouTube filmmakers who are needing something that's kind of like an all-in-one platform, run and gun. This is going to be the camera for YouTube. I have no doubt about that. So will I be getting one? Probably, we'll see. But with that being said, I'm gonna wrap up the video here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I have some more really exciting content coming your guys' way, so be on the lookout for that. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm tired. It's like I just want to say yes.